this morning with gloom on my head. Had a big feeling to climb back in bed. Then I looked in the mirror and somebody said, wake up, wake up.
It's time to wake up. We have a terrific, wonderful Wednesday, and that means my wonderful Wednesday partner from Walmart and our Walmart Wednesdays. I have Bradley Gilbert. Good morning, Bradley.
Good morning, Becky.
Good to have you with us this morning. And it is Education Wednesday, too, and that means from our great friends over there at West Washington, we have our Superintendent, Keith Nance. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning, Becky.
And Keith has brought in a special guest, and we're so glad. I don't know how first impressions. I don't know how we're doing so far. But anyway, so good to meet. And we have Angela, and let me make sure I say it right. Girgis and Angela. Anyway, so glad to have you. And you're the principal over at the high school.
Yes. And the first impression is not her on us, it's us on her.
I know.
So no,
she's
listening.
wonderful.
Yeah. No, yeah, so everybody listening, we want to make sure the first impression is.
She's fantastic.
We don't want her to be overwhelmed with that.
Well, I'm looking over at you and I'm thinking, Brad, we might have blown it. That first, can we do a redo on this? Anyway, so glad to have you with us this morning. We're going to find out all the great things going on, and it is exciting to get the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah.
Started. So let's thank our sponsors.
All right, we've got Walmart, Meadowview, Salem Crossing, Hoosier Uplands, Kentucky, and Cattencore Recycling, Dr. Blackside Associates, Dr. Mindy Gunn. Thank you, sponsors.
Yes, thank you to our wonderful sponsors. Let's see here real quick. I need to, the Reds started a new series last night with the Braves. And lost 3-2. I don't know if I should report that stuff. You know, let's see. Cincinnati was in the second place at 5.5 games out of the first place. And after all the losses Monday and Tuesday night, they are now down to 7 games back. Okay. The Reds play Atlanta again tonight at 7:20. Pre-game will be on WSLM at 6:50. So tune in for that. We are under a heat advisory, and we have this little bit of rain that's come through, just enough to get my hair.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, I know. Just enough to say, here we are, Becky, and Brad, and
yeah.
So we have that, but that's going to clear out, and then we're going to be under extreme heat advisory, so we know how to behave. Remember, be careful if you're going to be out any length of time, water, sunscreen, and take breaks every so often. And it is so hot, even you know your degree of heat when the Colts move their practice inside. So they messaged me last night that they're moving inside because due to the extreme heat. And so the heat's on for a couple of days. So are we officially into the dog days of summer, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. So anyway, just be careful out there. All right, let's jump in and find out. And let's find out first of all, let's meet Angela. Angela, tell us about yourself. And we got a chance to talk to you prior, but now let's let the community meet you.
Well, I actually went to school at Orleans. I graduated from Orleans High School, so I am from this area.
Yeah.
I taught at Mitchell for 18 years at Hatfield Elementary, and then I moved on to Bedford to become an administrator. Spent time there, loved it, and then the last 2 years, I've been an educational consultant, working with schools throughout the state, and enjoyed that immensely, but greatly missed that interaction with students and staff on a daily basis, and I knew I wanted to jump back in, and very blessed that West Washington is where I've been able to land. I have four children, wonderful husband, and
love that. Well, right prior to you, Blazing, was Mary Ann Knapp,
yes,
which we're a huge fan of. And so, and she had built so many relationships. And of course, with children and adults, we all are not real crazy about change. So how awesome to bring someone so wonderful in, and you can bring so much great stuff to the table, or your greatness to the table.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Knapp has set a wonderful foundation.
Yes.
It's always nice to come in behind a great leader.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do a lot of, let's say, repair. I just get to pick up where she left off and move forward. So, again, I'm very thankful for that.
Right. And going to the different schools, from Mitchell, maybe not quite as big, to Bedford, you've seen a little bit of both worlds, which you can bring a lot of that information to the table.
Right. Yes.
That's been probably very helpful for you.
It has. And there's different nuances, that you'll find everywhere. But overall, it tends to be the same. Kids are the same. education, in those aspects of curriculum and instruction. So, other than I love West Washington's sense of family, not every corporation has that wonderful sense of family. I was told that's what I would see, and I have, and I'm very appreciative of that. That is something that I think is unique and stands out at West Washington. Love that. Love that. Sure.
Well, welcome, and I'm getting settled in the community and getting to meet everyone. Of course, you're not too far if you're from that, and that works out wonderful too.
It's a nice drive. It's not too long. It gives me time to refresh, think, decompress.
Yeah.
It's a nice, not a long drive, but it's long enough just to, like I said, prepare for the day or kind of de-stress on going home.
Those are nice. Yeah, they are very nice for sure. So Keith, how excited were you to get Angela?
Oh, it was very exciting. Going through the process of hiring a new building leader is kind of scary. It's difficult. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence and investigating all possibilities that are out there. And we had a great group of individuals apply. And then when we selected down to those that we were interviewed, the folks that came in and interviewed were all terrific as well. There were just some things that set Angela apart that we really felt could take West Washington from where we are, which is in a really good place, and push us forward. I always feel like if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So you don't want to rest on your accomplishments from the past. You want to constantly be thinking about what can we do to improve, what things do need to improve. Everyone has those things. Even if you think you're doing very, very well, the fact is there are some things that need to be addressed, and there are some things that you need to work on. And Angela's experience, her unique set of skills, I think we're best suited to move us in that positive direction. So we're very excited to have her. We're very excited to have her wealth of knowledge and experience. Our teachers have really latched on to the idea of improvement. Is very critical as well, coming off of 2 pretty inconsistent years, where no matter how well you did, there's going to be learning gaps. And the best way to address those are with great instruction. And one of the things that we're so excited about is Angela's experience and knowledge and instructional leadership. Things that can just, little changes. You go into a great teacher's classroom, there are little things that you may be able to see that could take them beyond great. I always feel like if you take good and make them great, then that's really what you're trying to do in a leadership position. And we have some very good teachers. We have some great teachers, and just the ability to move them forward, even just the slightest, is going to make a big impact on our students.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about something that how has the school year started, and give us the COVID information. I mean, this is something that
I'll say this because I don't want to jinx anything. We've been very fortunate, and in comparison to the start of the school last year, I know what's in the news and what's happening nationally, and maybe maybe we've just been very lucky, but we have not had an overwhelming issue. It's been very minor. Parents have been very responsible about communicating with us. I think that's really the key, is for things to go off well. You can't just say, I know you don't feel great today. Go on in and see how you feel. That's kind of the mode of operation prior to COVID. Now that we've been through this, we understand that, everyone doing their part, everyone taking some responsibility and saying, okay, we're gonna check with our kids, see how they're feeling. We're not going to push the envelope on. When I was a kid, if I got out of bed and said I didn't feel good, my mom would just jerk me right out of bed and say, "You're going to school, boy." We have to be more. We have to be more cautious than that right now. And our kids and our parents have been very responsible with that. We even got we'll receive messages from students occasionally like, "Hey, I was with students outside of our school family, and they've come down sick." And they've openly communicated that to us. And I think that everyone's invested in trying to make the school year as consistent as possible. I mean, everyone wants to say normal. I don't know what normal is really, but I am really happy to see the way the year kicked off and the enthusiasm. Because to be honest, even the successes were hard to celebrate last year because you would take 2 steps forward and you'd always take 1 step back. So we're just hoping to just continue to take these small incremental steps forward, and so far that's been what's happened. So we just hope that continues, and it does take everyone. And one person that I cannot sing their praises high enough is our nurse, Dawn Woods, and our nurse's assistant, Tristan Williams, because it makes a really pretty difficult job. Absolutely. Extremely hard. And they've just done it with such poise. They've continued to be compassionate, even though they're under a lot of stress and pressure. So I can't say enough about them and the job that they've done. They've just been so helpful and so good at communicating with our parents when they do have to call. It's the last call you want to get as a parent. Your child has been in close contact, and we have to follow these protocols. And so when you pick up the phone and you make that call, the person on the other end, even if they're going to be polite, even if they're going to be respectful, that they're not going to be happy to receive the call. Sure. And sometimes that's hard, but they've done such a good job, such a professional job of calling and explaining the situation and the circumstances. And I don't know what we'd do without them.
Well, it's no calls that nobody wants to receive. But let's go back, Angela. You've been in school corporations, and Keith. Do you feel this way that in the very beginning, like it was so, I'm going to say, people were so not talking about it, and if you will, they were so embarrassed by it. They were so like it had that with it that
there's a little stigma.
Like,
I did something wrong. I've gotten sick, or
but like we know that like if we were sitting here and Brad couldn't be with us today because he had the flu. You know what I mean, right? I mean, how many times have we been in that? Or Brad he has a cold. I mean, those things were okay to say, but then when you said the word COVID, or then everybody just like, okay. Right. So I think we've squashed that. Yeah. I think we've come a long way, and that was something on our station. I know we really tried to hammer that it's okay, it happens, and it can be the weirdest thing because you can have 4 people in a room and one person come down and the other 3 maybe never even get to. So, I mean, but we're not scientists, so it's above our, I know definitely above my pay grade. But I'm saying is I'm so happy that we are to the point where if somebody feels that they were exposed or possibly having the symptoms, that they can talk about it.
Yeah.
And do you feel that in education's been so much better?
Absolutely. I know even in our building, even here at the beginning of school, if somebody has a sore throat or, just not, you're just not sure because, those are typical symptoms of just, that we have always experienced. Right. But, someone might mask up then just, in case. And I love it because in our building, there's no stigma. There are those who choose to. There's, obviously those who choose not to. But it's the norm now. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. It is the norm.
Right. I think our children have done amazing.
It is interesting because sometimes as adults, we are the ones that are even more set in our ways than they are, and they're more flexible and they're more resilient. Yeah. And sometimes you can look at them and take the lead. I do appreciate that people are more open than before. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it was like people thought they had done something wrong or they were going to be treated differently. Yeah. It's like leprosy or something. Yeah. And what's happened is, it's like it's no one's fault. You could be the most careful person in the world, and you could end up falling ill. And so I think that understanding is there now, and I think with that understanding becomes more communication. And communication is the key to, trying to ward off anything potential or like a larger outbreak. So very thankful for our parents and our kids for doing that. And I think it was a learning process for sure. It was a big learning curve. So
Well, I think for schools too, and a lot of businesses do this too. And I'm, this is the way and we roll. But had that, that perfect attendance. We all shot for that. You know what I mean? And I know that was something, important to me too. We all, felt wanted that certificate of perfect attendance. And now we've learned that that's not always the best thing to have.
Yeah, I think it was always a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And I think it does communicate some commitment. It communicates some work ethic. But working through illness probably isn't the smartest thing to do, even in a non-COVID world.
Right. Exactly.
It's not the only. It's not the only illness that's communicable, and so maybe once we are beyond this, those practices might continue. One thing I thought was extremely interesting was how some of the mitigation strategies and some things that people did. There were other illnesses that were down over the last year.
Right. Yeah.
Whether that be flu or colds or strep throat or whatever.
Right. Well, and we were talking about this the other day. Is it like, let's say as a mom or dad, you have, you go to the doctor and your child's sick, and they, call in a prescription, and we've all taken that child inside to like go get that prescription filled, right? And then what else do you need? Do you need some chicken noodle soup? Do you need something to drink? And here's that child that's sick. Now you realize that that's not the thing to do.
Probably not.
Probably not. That's why we have online grocery pickup.
Yeah, there you go.
Stay in your car online.
Yeah, so piggybacking on top of thinking about the COVID, Angela, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. In preparing you have a lot to consider starting a new role, new corporation, everything to think about. And then there still is COVID looming out there. So how did the idea of what could possibly come, because there is a school corporation, I think Scotland, which is Austin, I think.
Yeah.
I think they announced that they're going virtual for the next 2 weeks or something like that. But in your thought process of preparing for the school year, did you factor in possible ways that you might have to, as the leader, deal with COVID coming back or
Sure.
changing the direction again?
That was always, heavy on my mind because it's not gone yet. And so how are we proactive, and that's, again, one thing I loved about when I met with Mr. Nance, and considering West Washington, how forward thinking and proactive he is. And so that, that falls right down to the very basics of our current situation. So talking and thinking through that, I talked to my staff as, what did we learn from the last year and a half? What are some things that we did really well academically and otherwise that we want to carry into this year? So when you have those conversations, then you do become proactive as to, okay, if this happens, plan A, here's what we'll do, or plan B. And and some things will take us by surprise. That's life. But yes, we've already talked about with our teachers as to plans of actions, as to what we do. Kids are home, or plethora.
And I'm not trying to jinx anything. We hope everything is smooth,
no,
right?
but it is where we're at, and
Well, I can say that I witnessed walking around the building the first couple of days. You always have that first day. Here are the key things that you got to do to be successful in my classroom, and these are like my steadfast rules to fall in line with. And then I was also hearing things like, and remember, if we ever have to go virtual, this is how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do that. I mean, what beginning of the first days did you remember those kind of conversations? So it was different, but you also could see, the wheels turning in people's minds. Like, okay, it took us 2 days, 3 days, a week to get everything together and on board whenever it was sprung on us last year. In instances that it was sprung on us last year. Now, how can we better prepare ourselves in the event of that happening? And so you could hear those conversations. And of course, the admins have been talking about that quite a bit. So I feel like, again, the kids are so resilient. It's more just about telling them what to expect, because when it happens, it does put a lot of pressure on teachers, for sure. You could see it last year. You talk about teacher fatigue. I never seen it greater than in this environment. But the kids, they'll just roll with the punches. And so it's more about the teachers, like Angela, having those conversations with them. What things went really well? What things did you invest a ton of time in, and it really didn't have that much of an impact? Sometimes we bring a lot of things on ourselves when it comes to fatigue and stress, and I know I do that to myself. And then if you reflect a little bit, you say, why did I spend so much time worrying about that? Let's focus on the fundamentals, the things that really pay off, and be prepared for that instance. So we learned a lot. I mean, I can say that we definitely learned a lot, and a lot of it was learning like what not to do, and some of it was, hey, some of this really worked well, and some of those practices you tried to manipulate and even use them in a standard classroom. I've seen that going on in some classes as well. So not ideal, of course. Everyone would like to just forget the last couple of years, I think, but I look back on them and with quite a bit of pride. Also, it's easy to look at some failures, but you look back and think, man, some people really stepped up. From teachers going around and delivering things to the people that were really reaching out to kids. That's the hardest part, is not having that personal contact, because you can move reluctant kids, you can engage kids that are not as engaged. It's more difficult. And I think that's where we'll see the biggest gap, is between the high achievers and the achievers, some people that are sometimes chasing those higher achievers, the gap widening a little bit. And we've always been so good at West Washington about taking those kids that struggle or have some factor that creates some difficulties in learning, and pushing them forward. And so I think that's why teachers took it so personally, because they were discouraged. They were hurt that if any kid got left behind in any fashion, even if it was just, I know this kid's able to get a B or a C, and I got them to pass, and I got them to understand, the most basic material, but that's not what our expectations are normally. So, just trying to build the morale of the staff, because that was defeating. And so, but that was also really encouraging to see, though, because when we came in, there was this sense of optimism, this sense of like, okay, we've experienced so much, we know how to make the best of this now. And just seeing their faces and seeing how excited they were to be back was good, especially for me, because you spend all summer in there all by yourself. And then some people show up, and there's like this little bit of electricity in the building, and it just kind of pumps you up a little bit.
First couple of people, he's like, "There's people here.
There's
There's people."
I was thinking it was the Tom Hanks. Remember when he took the soccer ball and he made it a person?
Oh,
No.
Yeah.
I do have the ladies that are work in my office, and the maintenance folks, which I can't say enough about them. Oh my goodness, they are. I mean, they're just absolute linchpins of our school. What they do on a daily basis, but then what they do in the summer, and those first couple of days, it is like a swarm of ants on a picnic or something, when everyone starts coming back to the same location, and the radio's going off. Hey, Chris, we need this. Hey, Jeremy, we need that. And they are just so just Johnny on the spot. They just show up, there they are, and then they're helping get things set up, and so things go off as smoothly as possible. Same thing with our IT department. Never before have we been so relied on technology, and so that creates environments where it's difficult, because I think of it like if you own a boat, it sets and sets and sets for months, and then you go out there and you get on the water and you just full throttle go. And that's kind of the way the technology is. It sets and sets and sets, and you're trying to do everything to be prepared, but it's going to happen. But there's going to be a hiccup, and just being able to step up and do the best we can to get that stuff all prepared and ready to go. So, I had so much respect for those guys and ladies.
I think we try to find. I do. So I hope other people do. But through all of this, when you think it through, you try to make sense of it, but you try to find the positives. You got to celebrate the victories. And sometimes those are few and far between, but you have to. And one of the things that I think about, and it's not just with what I do, what you all do, and the everyday heroes that kind of got taken for granted, for lack of a better way to put that. Your folks that are Johnny on the spot, they're always there. In good times, we kind of forget that. And it's at least during this, we should try to look at that and understand it and celebrate that, but kind of be appreciative, but also be mindful going forward that there are so many people that every day just quietly do things that are amazing. And we kind of need to celebrate that. And so you guys have got administrators, you've got teachers, you've got staff, you've got just people to take care of your facility, and it all works together. And so when everything's going great, you're just kind of, but it's good to finally be able to step back and say, wow, these people are amazing. And sometimes it's the least likely person that you think would be that, or that you would pay attention to be. That's just kind of the way I look at it. And it's, you got to celebrate those things.
And may I note there, that's one of the things that we're doing this year. As we just talked, this year is a fresh start, really for every school in the country. But that's how we're looking at it. It truly is a fresh start. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, and the staff and students have rallied around, is signature celebrations. That's one thing I've always done as a leader, is just what you said, to acknowledge, shout out to those who are doing great things. It can be very small. And so this year we've asked students and staff to just put out names, shout outs to students, somebody, and the teacher who's doing a great job. And then the community has been great. I've been asking if there was people in the community that wanted to donate any prizes or anything that we can give out. It's been awesome. We've just had a lot of support with that. So just this past week we started that, and we could do shout outs, and here's a gift certificate, here's something just small. We appreciate you, whether it be a custodian doing their job well, that often gets overlooked. Our building looks amazing thanks to our custodians. So signature celebrations is something they're going to do all year, and shout it out, and just acknowledge the good. And as you said, you made me think of something we did in our professional development at the beginning of school, is that I asked the teachers, we got into small groups, and I asked them we took a huge chart paper and we divided into fourths. And I wanted them to write down and talk about what went well last year with curriculum. What went well? What did we find worked well, from results of the pandemic with instructional practices? What did we see different that was positive in our students? And what did we find that was positive about ourselves? It was really interesting, as Mr. Nance said, to bring out that positive, and then to remember that and continue that, and remind ourselves that we all need to be encouraged and uplifted, because it can be really heavy. As he said, teacher fatigue has been extreme. And so again, that's another reason for signature celebration, just to let everyone in that building know you are appreciated. We're in this together.
Well, and I think what's been a blessing is we have learned that every day at school in the beginning is a blessing. I mean, it has been a gift. We've learned that, and I think that also what I love is that the students have got to meet their teachers. So if we should have to go virtual, if we should have to change things around, at least they've got to meet them. They've got to see their room. They've got a little bit of personal. When it was just cut off, and all of a sudden everybody just, it was hard for when they didn't actually get to meet the teacher or get that one-on-one. So now we have been blessed that we've been in it for, this is the second week, almost, not completely a week, right?
Yeah, we started last Thursday with the students, but you're right. You stop taking days for granted.
Sure.
We have our students in the building for 180 days. Every day that they're in the building is a true opportunity for us to impart and have an impact on them, both academically, socially, and just being a mentor to them, someone that can uplift them because we all know that there are enough things going against people, and sometimes in some of our families, they're struggling, and so school has been that consistent piece. And so every day that we're able to do that is, we no longer take it for granted. And so that's just another another effect that you can look at that is positive, which is those things that we took for granted at one time, I don't think we take for granted any longer. So that's some positive.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely, for sure. All
So
right.
what other, we got some other staff
Yeah. let's-
changes, right?
Yeah, I'll let Angela talk about the high school. We've added some new staff, but then we also added some help at the administrative level, and all those things have been going really well. It's been helpful. So I'll let Angela hit on some of that.
Yes. So administrative wise, Mr. Ingram has joined the assistant principal along with Mr. Mills, and so that's been great. A great team to work with, and we have several new teachers. We have I won't list all the names unless Mr. Nance wants me to. I'm still learning. I'm getting much better at names, but we have a couple in the junior high level. We have a couple at the high school level. Thankfully, we've been able to fill our positions, and I know that's not been the case around the state. There are still schools begging to have positions filled, so we were sweating it just a bit, but we've got a great staff, a new staff, and a really balanced staff. So we're hitting the ground running.
Yeah, we got some real veterans,
Yes.
and then we got all those in between, and then we got some. The funny thing about new teachers are they come in like the full born hopping around and all that energy and all that excitement. They obviously have a ton to learn. Their eyes are just open to this world, but they do come in and they do. They also help the veteran teachers because they see themselves in those teachers. Like, I remember what that was like, and that helps you recapture what made you become an educator in the first place, and to see them helping one another. We have a tremendous mentor program at the school, and so helping them along is an important piece of starting off well. So it's exciting because sometimes, at one period of time we had a staff that was all very experienced or veteran, which is great to have a veteran team. But bringing on some of that youthfulness and some of that energy that comes along with that also benefits. So we're speaking to the balance of the staff. It is a very balanced staff, and the one common thing that I see is that they all really care about our kids and our community. And when that's happening, you always know there's going to be bumps in the road or some things, but when you know what their motivation is, you also have this feeling of confidence that, despite small setbacks, we're all going to be on this path of doing the best we can for our kids and our community. So that's exciting. And then talking about the kids, I want to highlight one student in particular, Alton Lundergan. You saw on our Facebook page, he's a sophomore who has gone to school with my son and Grayson since they were in kindergarten. And he's a manager for all the sports teams, and you can see him. He's always there. But he had to do a project to earn his Eagle Scout, and he chose to do it at school. So it's kind of heartwarming that when he thought about doing something for his community, he thought about doing it for his school. And so that alone, but then going through the project, creating these benches for this outdoor space that we have. Yeah, so he built several benches for this outdoor space we have. It's actually right outside the window of my office. So like when the junior high kids go out there and they have class, or the teacher takes them out there to read or whatever, it's kind of nice for me too, selfishly. I get to look out the window and see these things going on. But we were in need of some furniture. The furniture we had out there was getting aged, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I really want to do something." And we were sitting in my office, and he looked out the window and he said, "Well, how about out there? We got this nice covered area, but we go out there for class, and it could be a lot nicer." And I said, "Alton, you're right. It could be a lot nicer." And so he just ran with it and got it all done this summer, so it was ready for the first day of school. And just proud of him and appreciative of him and his family. So wanted to highlight him.
Absolutely.
And then we had some kids to go and compete at the state fair last weekend, and then they're going back up. A lot of them are gearing up to head back up there now. So want to wish them luck. We got a lot, obviously, entrenched in an agricultural community. State fair is a big deal. It's like the Super Bowl each year, going to the state fair, and they're having great successes. So I don't want to leave anyone out. So I'm not gonna single any one person out. But you can see it on our Facebook page, on our FFA page. There are kids that are just knocking it out of the park on the state level as representatives of our school and their families. So I can't say enough about them. And want to wish them luck for those that are going back up to compete this weekend.
No, definitely. Talk about
Absolutely.
some fun opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how exciting is that? Yeah.
Well, it's you know how entrenched your community is when you see the adults. I mean, they're as jacked as the kids are. They're like, oh my gosh, we just came back from state fair. It was so great, and we're going back up next weekend. And it is such a part of, and I think it truly has an impact throughout our school, even for the kids that aren't necessarily tied to the ground, so to speak, to agriculture. But what happens is those kids and the others, they come with a humility, a work ethic. They understand commitment and what it takes to get the job done. And I think that it creates the personality of the school. I think that the basis of our community helps create that. So something we're really proud of, and proud of those kids for sure.
Yeah, because that's hard work, and one of those kids is my neighbor, and I get to see that hard work on a daily basis and talk about it. And it's amazing to see the commitment to it, but just the life lessons that they're learning that they maybe don't realize they're learning, but at the same time, just to see that hard work and then have them just like light up when they're talking about it. And maybe the outcome was or wasn't what they thought, but still, like, they don't regret a minute of the hard work. And I think that's amazing. And that's a testament to the tradition at West Washington as well. So that's something to be very proud of.
Well, and when you compete, in a county level is huge, but when you go up to a state level and you see all of the different, competitors, I mean, that's pretty exciting and pretty big. I mean, you talk about planting good seeds that they're, they're getting. So that's pretty awesome. Not to mention the fair food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Dippin' Dots.
Oh, I'm the pigs in the blanket, or pigs in the mud, the bacon and the chocolate.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's delicious.
It sounds kind of gross, but
No.
great at the same time. I don't know.
You can't knock it till you try it. You got your
Like
salt
the maple
and your
donuts with bacon on it, right?
Yeah.
It sounds kind of terrible,
Yeah.
but
It's really good. But anyway, so no, that's exciting, and the fair is going strong. We actually got to talk to our lieutenant governor up there yesterday, and she was talking about the greatness and how much fun it is up at the state fair. So what a great opportunity for our students, for sure.
I do want to reiterate something that's been pinned to the top of our school page and our Facebook page. We're very fortunate that every school is offering free breakfast and lunch right now. What a blessing that our federal government has approved to go on again through this school year. But with that, we want to reiterate that we still want to complete the free and reduced lunch process, because that's where textbook assistance comes from. Textbooks are not free in the state of Indiana. I love being a Hoosier, but we're one of 8 states that don't do that.
I know.
That's kind of discouraging.
I've heard several
If I were to, not to take a shot at anyone, but that's something that ought to change. And if you have connection to someone that could change that, maybe mention it.
absolutely.
But one of 8 states, that's to me, that's frustrating. But through the free and reduced lunch process is how we get, if you qualify for reduced lunch, you get free textbooks. So the qualifications are also much broader than you may think. If you are a family of 5 or 6, what your income can be and be qualified for reduced lunch, which then gives you free books, is actually a very middle class income, which is where we are, right? Middle class, middle America. A lot of people will qualify for this. And I understand the pride in saying, hey, I can pay for my child's book. If you have 3 children, and it's approximately on average, we always try to keep it around $100 or less. That's a burden. $300 if you have 3 kids and you have to do it right at the start of school after you've bought supplies and bought school clothes. And that burden doesn't have to be a burden. We just ask that you fill out the free and reduced lunch form and get it back to us. you can contact the school office, and they can walk you through that process, send home the paperwork. You can do it. You can get online and pull it off of our website and print it off, or if you're inclined technology with technology, you can take it and open it up in a PDF and type it out and send it back to us. But we really encourage people to fill that out.
Wonderful. Well, good information to know.
But and then the other thing is it helps our school. So you're helping yourself, but you're helping our school as well, because a lot of the grants we apply for are all based off that number.
Yeah.
So just having complete information is important to us, because it helps us in so many different ways. So a lot of us carry a lot of pride, and so I don't want to belittle that, because from that pride comes a lot of great work. But if you need to, tell yourself you're helping us, because you really are. By filling out that free introduced lunch form, you're helping your school. And we use that information in a lot of areas. And there are clear cutoffs for certain programs that if you don't reach a number on free introduced lunch, whether that's 40% or 45%, you just don't even qualify. And the truth is, what our percentage is doesn't represent truly what our community is. Last couple of years we've been around 40%. I know that number is probably higher, but that same work ethic, that same sense of pride, sometimes gets people to say, "Oh, I don't need that," but our school needs it. So you can help our school by filling out that free introduced lunch form, and I encourage everyone to do so.
And that's good information, because sometimes it takes that. Well, I'm benefiting more people than myself, so that's great information. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I don't think that a lot of people understood that way.
Yeah.
They explained it, so that's good information. And I think in our community, the majority can, make it.
Another exciting thing that I want to say is
help out.
our enrollment is the highest it's been since 1999, 2000,
How cool is that?
something like that. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting stuff. Just proud that people take such pride in our school. When I started there, I knew I was joining something special, but it was kind of like that, we had a shade over our lamp. It was kind of like, this is ours. And just showing what is happening at our school, what it's always been, has, it's opened up a whole new world for us. It's highlighting and telling your own story. At one time when I got there was a little bit of a stigma of West Washington, and really not. I mean, there's been some change, but the base things have always been the same. Good people that really care about each other, working very hard to accomplish whatever it is we set our goals to be. That's always been the case. We've made some changes here and there that have made us a little stronger academically. We've made some changes here and there that have made our CTE, our career and technical education stuff, stronger. And those are important, and we're proud of those things. But what really is happening is we just started saying, we're not going to let people tell us who we are. We're going to show who we are. And that's just changed the perception dramatically, because what we have there are great teachers, amazing kids and families, and just proud of what the school is, proud of where we are, and with the help of Miss Girgis, we're going to keep moving forward.
Well, that's good, because I know I'm one that I've been welcomed into the Senator family. So, that says a lot about what's going on. If you'll take a Salem alum, that.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah. So speaking of goals, I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. So have you set yourself like top 3 or 4 goals, or are you a goal setter that way, or do you say the goals will come as everything evolves with a new job? Some people handle it differently.
I appreciate that question. When I met with the staff at the beginning of the school year, my push out to them was, this needs to be a shared vision, collective wisdom. As Mr. Nance said, we have an amazing staff. They all bring strengths to the table. And even though I'm very strong in my instructional leadership and believe in what I can bring, everyone needs to come to the table, and we need to decide collectively what it is our goal should be for this year, especially coming out of the last year and a half. I didn't feel like I could come in and say, okay, number one, number two, number three. And granted, there are some small changes that I'm bringing to the table, and again, they've been very receptive to that. But this year is growing relationships, just talking, and again, as we say, a fresh start. What do we want that to look like? And I feel like that's how we'll have a successful year. And even with students, I asked when I came in, I wanted to start a student leadership advisory program. And so I asked the assistant principals to take that on. And they're amazing. Went right after it. And there was a picture on our page yesterday. So we put out a push to the students. If you'd like to have a voice, if you'd like to have some changes, we want to hear what you think. And so we had a great turnout yesterday morning. Mr. Ingram met with them, and they're going to meet monthly. And obviously, everything they would like to suggest, we cannot do. But
Can I give you some? I'm sure you'll see longer lunches.
Yeah.
School starting a little bit later. School getting out a little earlier.
True, but they've also been they're just a great group of kids, and already some of their responses and what they'd like to see are very foreseeable as we work together. And we, that's just building leadership in our kids before we launch them into college and career. So that's one thing I've really been excited. We're just 3 or 4 days into it, 5 days, but to see that and to see that student participation and eagerness. I've already had students reach out to me. I've asked them, hey, email me. Meet me in the hallway, give me a note, let me know your thoughts. And they have taken me up on that. And that's been just a huge bit of energy for me, for these kids, because that's truly, that's why we're there, as for these students. So.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday, and I was going to ask about that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's a different take on how we develop leaders, right? It's a different take. So I think that's very interesting. And I think a lot of times, well, especially during the last couple of years, everybody in general felt like they didn't have a voice. So it's very important to get that buy-in from the students that they're being listened to. Even if you can't do everything, at least you care enough to listen. And that's very important, regardless of what the school system is. The students want to be listened to.
Well, one of the benefits of the last 2 years is being out and about in the state, and with schools, with hearing from the collegiate level, just hearing all different kinds of voices in the state, and hearing what our students are lacking, which not to be negative, but what our students are lacking when they matriculate to college or career. So that's been very beneficial. I keep that in my hip pocket, because then I can bring that back. And for instance, this is just one small way that we need leaders when they launch, and having that voice and choice. High school students really appreciate a voice and choice. And that's kind of, as an educator, sometimes that's hard. I know before I've kind of clutched to some things close to my heart, but if we allow them that reasonable voice and choice, we will see positive results from that. And we did, starting yesterday.
Well, I'm thinking that when we've gone through, the pandemic, and everybody, it was such the unknown. Everybody had there was so much anxiety, so much fear, so many emotions, high and lows, and all that we went through. So it is nice for them to give some ideas and let you know. And maybe the note might just say, something just that's very doable and very, that we might miss as adults. So that's very nice. Yeah.
Well, I will always say that kids are the most perceptive people, like so much more than adults. I don't know when we lose it or how we lose it, but a kid can walk into a room and they can feel the temperature immediately. And that's why it is so important that we're cognizant of it. But that also helps give us a fresh set of eyes. A kid may say something that is so much more intuitive than you could ever imagine, and then it spurs something. You're like, oh yeah, that is somewhere where we're falling short. Or we also have kids that are coming forward and saying, I really appreciate this. And that, for an educator who might be fighting some stress or some fatigue or whatever's going on, those things are so, I always tell people, you can't always be the person that fills up everybody's cup. and don't have someone that's filling up yours, because eventually you're going to run on empty, and running on empty is not healthy. Running on empty is not going to make you effective. We have to have people that are willing to pour back into one another's buckets, because that's how you uplift everyone. And sometimes kids are the best at doing that, and it means more. I hate to say it means more, but we in my house we call it the red shirt syndrome. One New Year's Eve, I went out with my wife, and she was wearing the red shirt, and I told her how many times she looked beautiful. She looked so great, so nice. And then we went out. We're standing in line at a concert, and someone tells her how great her shirt looks, and she just, oh my gosh, it was the best thing ever. I'd said it 10 times already, but sometimes that's what you need, a different person to give you just that little bit. And so the kids having that opportunity is gonna be reciprocal, where it's not only good for them, it's going to be good for our adults.
Love that. Yeah. That's good. I always call it like the Charlie Brown. Remember how when the teacher would talk, mom, that's what they heard, and then, but yeah, I have a tendency to be like that too. I can agree with you on that. Yeah, but it's going to be off to a new school year, and any new programs that we might have missed, or anything going on that we need to.
We're really building on some of our foundations that we already had. It'd be difficult to come in and do, bring in a whole lot of new programs in this scenario, but we have built on our CTE programs, the heavy equipment and CDL. Last year, we only had enough for one section of each. They're block periods or 2 periods apiece. We added a second section of the heavy equipment operating, so that hopefully next year we could have heavy equipment too. So we allow juniors to take it. So that's something that's a little new. And then we brought music back. We struggled to find someone for music, and that's really the only reason why we didn't have music last year. So we brought music back. We think that is a healthy component, an outlet for our kids, and we do have talented kids that can succeed there. We are trying a little different model. Before it was always band. Now we're looking at more of an encompassing music as a whole. So there's a choral element, there's an instrumentation element. We don't have a traditional band, so to speak, but the hope is that we can form a rock band type pep band, and with guitars and basses and drums and all those things. And what we did was we moved Miss Hannah Ledgerwood from the elementary to the high school. And she is one of those student magnets. She has such a strong draw, because what she does, she loves so much that she just attracts them. And so I think that it's gonna have the start of something very successful. And then in the elementary, she's gonna still kind of have her toe in the water there, but we've placed someone in there to lead the class, and she is kind of providing the curriculum and helping them along, so that we have a all-encompassing from elementary all the way through high school music program.
Speaking of Hannah Ledgerwood, I want to thank her again. She sang the national anthem for our grand reopening. Amazing. And there was dignitaries and visitors, and someone said that is the best national anthem that I've ever had to witness as far as anything like that. And thank you again to her, because I kind of put her on the spot, but Keith got in the middle of that. I messaged him and said, hey. I need to talk to Hannah, but she did an amazing job, and it was amazing. So she represented us Washington very well on that too. So very proud of that.
Big day for sure.
It's very good. Something else is not necessarily a new program, but it's a state mandate, is that there's a new accountability model coming out for high school. Which that's not surprising, that tends to happen. But so the staff educating them on what that looks like. Part of that is the SAT has a big part of 40% of that accountability model. So we are working towards that, and that's changing up. We're talking through again that collective vision and that wisdom as to how we can address and take on this new challenge. We can do it, and especially with the staff at West Washington, but that's something that's new this year that we're refocusing on as a team at the junior high and high school level. And that's a cool thing about West Washington. Another thing I loved about West Washington is the junior high and the high school is right there. Well, it's all there together. But when you can work with junior high and high school as well, and then it's just fluid with what the instruction pieces are, and so that's a really positive asset that I think we have.
Absolutely. So some of this is going to be more on the teachers or more on the students that we're seeing,
Well,
or both?
I believe both.
Yeah.
It's the onus is on us as instructors to make sure that we're preparing our kids to be able to be successful at that level. And but we start from day one. That's one thing I found is we don't wait until 2 months before and say, okay, here it comes. Let's gear up. And we have started it from day one. We'll be speaking that to our students, and we'll be our professional learning communities that we're starting. We will be focusing on that throughout the year. So, and then when that time comes, there's not that dreaded fear necessarily or that apprehension. There's always a little,
Sure.
but when it's your norm, your kids receive that in that manner. So we'll all be working together on that one.
Well, that's interesting for sure. Yeah. Good. Well, I think we've hit everything. Have we?
Yeah, I always run you up to 9 o'clock.
That's okay.
That's
That's
good.
okay.
That's
We'll take
good.
it. We'll take it for sure. Well, a lot going on. Angela, please come back. I'm so glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new
Thank you.
position. And I've heard about you, but finally I get to meet you. It's exciting and see what great things we've got for West Washington. And of course, so let's see. So we're at 175 more days to go, right? Countdown. You have calendars that do that.
I've always as a teacher said that was the one of the tough things to do is you don't want to focus on the end. You want to take and focus on the moment. So even you go in and gets towards the end, and maybe some people do it as a fun thing, as a countdown. But I don't see our teachers do that because we're trying to focus on what today is bringing. I know you said that in jest,
Yeah,
but
I bet
this year I wish we had 200 days. Honestly,
I bet there's going to be some students that about halfway through start thinking, "Well, we'll count down for you."
Yeah, but that's right.
the 100th day of school is always one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Like when the elementary kids are celebrating their 100th day of school.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so exciting. And speaking of our kindergarten, man, we got some awesome teachers down there. Number one, I remember a quick story or anecdote, I guess. I went from being a 4th grade teacher to a 6th grade teacher once, and this is kind of how naive some community members are. And they said, "Oh, you're going to get a raise. You're moving to the middle school." And I said, "If anyone deserves a raise or to be paid more, it's the kindergarten teacher,
Yeah.
because that job
It's hurting
oh
cats.
wow, it is
No
and they accomplish so much. You were talking about growth from day 1 to day 180. But we have 90 kids in our kindergarten.
Wow.
The biggest class is our graduating class of 2000. And I think that says a lot about our community too. I mean, it says a lot about the school, but it also telling me what used to be everyone trend of moving towards the city or the suburbs. They are realizing the quality of life that you can have in a community like ours in Washington County. And that has a lot to do with Walmart. It has a lot to do with our leaders here at the county level. This is a great place to live, and I think people are seeing that. And as technology advances and more people can be remote, I think more people are going to see living here as an advantage. That's why it's so important that our infrastructure in our county has been forward thinking, and we have in most places pretty reliable high-speed internet. And I know that as a part of our county commissioner's goal is to make that happen countywide. So I can't say enough about those people, but what that tells me is people are valuing the small community. People are valuing what we can bring as a school. So I'm happy. I mean, it does put us under a little bit of a burden because right now we have 90 kids and figuring out how exactly that's going to work. Luckily, we had the foresight to make sure we had at least 4 full-time teachers in there. But probably to the future, if this trend continues, we're going to be growing and hiring more because we also want to keep that small setting as much as we can to protect that.
90 kindergartners are awesome, but they're also a lot, aren't they? It's amazing, though. It's like, kindergartners are fun.
The teachers get things done.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
kindergarten teachers. They're the ones. If you want something done, you get a kindergarten teacher. They'll get it done for sure. Well, that's pretty awesome. Well, and highlighting the different groups. It's so much fun and exciting and most wonderful time of the year. Exciting time of the year for sure. And taking it day by day. So as of right now, in the masks are optional.
Currently, masks are optional. That's a part of our opening plan. We are monitoring closely. I am having almost daily conversations with members of the board and discussing where we are with our school. The numbers as a state are important, but the data that we have that really tells the story about our community are equally important. And, so that's a constant conversation. As of now, that is where we are. And, at the end of the month, I'm going to have some pretty interesting data to compare from last year to this year too.
Oh, definitely.
Because things that are drastically different. And we were doing some things at the time that we thought were good precautions that we have since learned aren't completely necessary. Like the amount of times we were cleaning surfaces and with the chemicals that were very strong that we're utilizing and learning now that yes, we need to clean surfaces, especially very high touch surfaces, but we were doing a lot. And and so it's going to be interesting to compare the two and see what impact that had and then what impact the start of this year has had.
Yeah.
So
Wonderful. Well, keep up the great work. And again, thanks for coming in on Education Wednesday. We'll be doing this. We'll see you in a couple weeks. We'll maybe have you back or have someone back from West Washington telling all the great things, and we'll know more. And I know everybody, you start the morning off and we're able to go, and you pray when the bell rings that we're still able to go the next day. I remember that.
yeah, that was one of the uncertainty.
Yeah.
It was always difficult to deal with. But I think the stress and the angst that we may put on ourselves, I'm doing my best and I'm trying to portray that to others is like live in the moment. Today is today. We can handle today. And today we're going to go do our very best. If I spend today worrying about tomorrow, how effective can I be today? So we're trying to live in that. That's my mantra at home. That's my mantra here as a professional. And so I hope that today's going to be a wonderful day.
Best day ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
So piggybacking on that, just a reminder, we are don't have to have an appointment. You can walk in, free COVID vaccinations during our pharmacy hours. So please, free, don't need an appointment. So absolutely, if you're not sure, think about that, whatever's best for you, but we offer that. So that's another way that we can help keep our kids in school and help our communities. So.
Do you have like educational materials? Like if for example, if I were there shopping, I was uncertain. Is there something I could grab to read up on, and then maybe at another time make my educated decision?
Yeah, absolutely. You can step over and talk to one of the Marcus or Jeff or anybody in the pharmacy team, and they do have information they can give you, and you don't have to commit right then. So absolutely.
Yeah,
so you can do that, and you can go on Walmart.com too, and has some educational information there as well. 100% comfortable. This is our options, but there is information, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I did have someone yesterday that I know that had talked to them early in the morning, and they took some information and then decided to come back and do what's best for them. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm amazed too. I've just heard a lot that maybe possibly had COVID, a while ago, and you have to wait so long before you can have your shot, and now they're having their shots. So the people getting shots are kind of back up, but kind of going back up again. Kind of there was a little bit of a
the trend is up for the first time for like the last 7 days. The trend has been up, and it's the last time that it went up to those levels, or when it opened up to 12 to 18-year-olds. So
that's good.
That's a positive sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely. All right, Brad, let's thank our sponsors.
All right, we've got Walmart, Meadowview, Salem Crossing, Hoosier Uplands, Kentucky and Cat and Core Recycling, Dr. Black Sciences, it's Dr. Mindy Gunn.
All right, thank you, Principal Angela Girgis, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Enjoyed
Thank you, our Superintendent Keith Nance. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for all you do for us and our community.
Brad, thank you for coming in too.
Appreciate it.
Brad's like, what about me? What about me? Yeah. All right, have a great day.